So we are going to pause the March Madness talk just to give you a glimpse of what's going on in pro days for some of our favorite ACC talent. We're going to talk about Kenny Pickett and the fact that he's one of the top quarterbacks in this draft, but is that a good thing? I'm not sure this draft class of quarterbacks is anything that jumps off the page. We'll love to get AJ Black of Boston College's thoughts here. We'll have it next.
Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, and on Wednesdays, we get the talented AJ Black to join us and talk about all things ACC, a little bit of Boston College, a little bit of everything in between, but more importantly, we have some great conversations, so I'm super excited about that. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. I host Locked On ACC, while AJ hosts Locked On Boston College. AJ, how you feeling? How you feeling about that Matt Ryan trade?
I'm happy for him, first of all.
Okay.
No offense to any of if we have any Georgia Tech listeners or people from the Atlanta area. I watched, he had his time there, but how many years did he have bad defenses, bad offensive line, no weapons, bad coaching? Now he gets to go from that. He goes from, the jalopy to the penthouse, as I said on my podcast. You're going from not like, you just lost Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley's gone, to Jonathan Taylor, the best running back in the nation, arguably a good offensive line, so he's not going to get killed again. You have a good defense and a good coach. Yeah. I mean, what gets better than that? You're going from a team that was looking to rebuild to a team that could contend in the AFC. That's a great deal for Matt Ryan. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, 100%. And let's not forget the fact that his own team had the dangling carrot of Deshaun Watson in his face. Like, we could get better than you. We're going to see if we can. But, like, come on. Damage would absolutely be done in my eyes if you're even considering someone else with all I've done for you.
Right, exactly. And, the AFC, I think, is going to be a heck of a conference this year. You got some real talent in there. I mean, you look at the Chargers, they just rebuilt. They added, JC Jackson and they had some beef on that defense to go with Justin Herbert. You have Russell Wilson going NC State. We can talk ACC here. Going to the Denver Broncos. I mean, it's a heck of a conference.
100%. Meanwhile, my NFC East and the Giants haven't gotten any better, and I'm just like, why do we even bother at this point? But we could talk NFL all day long. But we are talking about football today, as I had mentioned. We had some pro days that have happened, and that some that are coming up. But want to focus on this one about Kenny Pickett. We're going to talk a little bit about Malik Willis. I would love to get your thoughts because right out the gate, the hottest topic conversation that they were having was about Kenny Pickett's hands. And apparently they grew. At his pro day. And that seemed to be the button thing. But you saw some of the teams that are desperate for a quarterback, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe Carolina Panthers and others of the like. And to me, watching Kenny Pickett, he's had a great senior. He's been afforded the opportunity to have that COVID year and really kind of put a name for himself. Being ACC champions definitely helps put your stock up. But is Kenny Pickett the guy? I don't know that I'm convinced, AJ. What about you?
I'm kind of there too. I mean, as I've kind of watched and look at what's coming next year, I have to wonder if the quarterback position is going to slide in the draft. Like, our team's going to see like all this good this really a lot of good offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and some good wide receivers in this class. Yeah. Are some of these teams that are looking to rebuild going to go, hey, the Giants, for instance, right? Let's go with, Evan Neal out of Alabama if he's available and get an offensive lineman, or are they going to really reach for Malik Willis? And, teams that I thought would fall kind of in that area of where Willis or Pickett could go are reloading. Like the Broncos were a perfect team. I thought Pickett might end up at, lower in the first round. And they just picked up Russell Wilson. They're not going to get a quarterback. You know what I mean? And so in the Browns, they're set now. You got all these teams that are locked in with quarterbacks. I'm not sold on any of these guys this year, and they're all gonna have to prove it. I know people. It's really funny. So I have my Monday show on Locked On Boston College is Mondays with Mitch, and Mitch is Mitch Wolf. He does a whole bunch of scouting stuff. He's trying to get his career started as a in the college football world. And he
Mhm.
was telling me, I showed him I'm sure you saw it, the clip of Malik Willis's pro day,
Yeah.
where he bombed a 75-yard pass, and he's like,
Right.
"Oh, that's great. Where were the defenders? Where were
Mm.
the cornerbacks? That's great. Any quarterback can do that." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But everyone's losing their mind over that. But like, you have to step back and you look at the three guys. You look at Howell, you look at Willis, and I mean, even you can add Coral from Ole Miss.
Right.
Are any of those guys that can't misses like Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence were last year?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, none of them that, some of the draft, websites that I looked at are reaching in the 90s, right? Maybe like 89.9. But
Yep.
you talk about Matt Corral, you talk about Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, you also have Desmond Ridder in there.
Yep.
Malik Willis, I think the flash of it all is because he's Liberty, and you're like, oh, quiet as is kept. Liberty is bringing on this really good guy. But even when we go in our ACC, our own backyard, Pitt had a dicey year. Like, they struggled against teams that they absolutely should have beaten. It wasn't, I'm not going to say none of it was solely on Kenny Pickett, because, Pittsburgh's defense definitely wasn't what it's used to being. But at the same time, he threw some balls that I was like, yikes, want that one back. I know you want that one back, even with Sam Howell. And now I just find myself being like, yeah, why don't you just take a guy who can learn, go to a team where you can learn a little bit, and then maybe become the man. But I don't see any of these guys being the man right away.
Right. And you look at the team, and you look at the class that's coming up behind him. If Bryce Young goes pro, if DJ Uyagale like jumps up, he could go pro.
Right.
There's some, Stroud at Ohio State. You got some real talent coming up, and so a team that may really want, a marquee quarterback, that franchise quarterback that they know they're going to stink this next year. Like, I don't know if the Jets have Kyle Wilson, and I'm sure they're not giving up on him yet. But a team that really doesn't have anything right now, Giants, baby. Sorry, but
No,
like,
it's okay.
But do they wait another? Do they just stockpile on assets right now and get like defensive linemen, and try to get that good quarterback next year? I don't know. If I was rebuilding, I'd probably just wait a year at this point.
Yeah. And then a lot of people, when I was listening to interviews from Kenny Pickett, beyond just the hand conversation, he was, talking about the adversity that he's dealt with being at Pitt and just overcoming all of that, but why he feels like he is a really good quarterback and can win right now because of his arm strength that he felt like he showed during his pro day. And even then, I sit there and say, okay, and you're more of an expert in this than I am, but arm strength is cool, but what can you do when everybody's coming out to get you? Like, are you one of those guys that can run, and when everything breaks down, can you find a play and make it work? Kenny, is cool, but I don't know that he's the guy that I'm like, hell yeah, I depend on him anytime any scrambling happens. Kenny Pickett's my guy.
Right. And how is he going to look? He's been doing this against ACC and college defenders. And
Right.
how is he going to look when he has NFL teams chasing after him?
Khalil Mack. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. The
you
huge
get chased by
ones.
Joey Bosa or
Exactly.
whatever, or Sam, not Sam Darnold. Why? Whatever.
Aaron Donald.
Donald.
Aaron Donald.
I'm having
all
a
of those.
day.
All those. No, it's all good. But
Aaron Donald.
I think
what I mean? Like,
yeah,
pit on pit violence, but but you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff. You always have to kind of account for that, and how these guys are going to adjust when they get to that next level. And it's hard to gauge these guys. That just they're all kind of crapshoots at this point, and there's no like surefire answer. And I think teams are going to probably recognize that.
And I think that one of the teams that is drinking the most juice is the Carolina Panthers, who, to me, if they draft, like, personally, I'm just going to sit here and say, if you draft a Kenny Pickett, you're not really paying attention. Like that, like to have Kenny Pickett and Sam Darnold competing over each other, like, it's not really something where I can say, okay, this is a winnable season. Like, you're going to have a plus, season going into 2022. I don't feel confident in that. Like, I don't feel like this offense is going to do the things necessary to win games. It's going to be a quick 3-and-out for your buddy Matt Rule. And yet they're the ones over here chumming it up, looking at his hands, getting all excited. And I'm like, oh, you're drinking the juice. You're drinking the wrong Kool-Aid, big dog. I'm like, what nerd is he telling y'all? But I don't think it's it. I don't think it's it.
Yeah.
Just my personal opinion.
I'm right there with you,
So,
Candace.
so we'll have to really play closer attention as we get to some of these draft boards. And I know you guys listen to the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, but if not just for the quarterbacks, we know that we have some really talented linemen coming out of the ACC, and we want to make sure we touch on that. But first, we know you guys are getting ready for Thursday and Friday matchups here for March Madness, and you can do so with our team at StatHero. It gives you the advantage resulting in some really good games. I love and hate the buzzer beaters, but I really appreciate the drama. StatHero's NCAA single game pick'ems pits the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. StatHero is the easiest way to get your sports action fix. The simple, sleek gameplay will have you playing in minutes. This is what daily fantasy was meant to be. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/locked-on using that same promo, LOCKEDON, for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/locked-on using promo code locked-on. If you had a chance to look at the Stat Hero interview that I did with their CEO, it was a great time, and he makes sure that he gets you right and ready for that bad boy. Beyond just Stat Hero, though, we know that you love to snack during March Madness. That's why you've enjoyed some of these Built Bar treats, and even including Puffs. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, and they're not just a protein bar. They're an actual treat covered in 100% real chocolate, low-calorie, high-protein, something you can replace your candy bars with. Mint brownie, coconut, almond, and the new for this month. You can try all of the available flavors just by going to Built.com, seeing what they have. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Again, LOCKed15 for 15% off at Built.com. So we're rocking and rolling here with AJ Black of Locked On Boston College. And of course, we are talking NFL draft and the road to it, and some of our not so stellar quarterbacks, but some really good linemen. And we know for you personally, talking about Zion Johnson, I'm sure till nauseum, but why do you feel like Zion is going to be an immediate impact on some of these teams that he is looking forward to being drafted by?
I mean, his versatility is off the charts. For a guy that moves the way he does, he's a little undersized to be a tackle, but he has the experience at Boston College playing tackle. He did it over 2 seasons, filling in for different injuries. He could play both guards. So a team like, I'm a New England guy, and I automatically look at the Patriots, and they have a open spot right now at guard because they just traded Shaq Mason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's right around that spot. So, a guy like Bill Belichick, he always talks about, the need for versatility in the players that they can do multiple different things. Getting a guy like Johnson that he can move all the way around on that line would be a real talent, a real asset at that spot. So, he's super talented. There's, the dude from NC State, Evan Neal. There's a couple other, offensive linemen, mostly tackles, that are more talented than him. But he brings a skill set that will immediately make him an impact player and immediately fill in and be a serviceable NFL offensive lineman right off the bat.
Yeah. And do you think that he is just as good, or maybe needs a little bit more work than people like Ikem Ekwonu? Who, do you think that Icky is ready-made, whatever team gets him is automatically going to get better?
I think both of those guys are the cream of the class. There's the elite guards, and that's Icky and Zion. And then there's the step below them, and those are the guys that are going to need a little bit more seasoning. I think both of those. I think both of those ACC guards are ready to go. And I'm not sure what Icky's versatility is in terms of up and down the line, but he's shown that I've seen mock drafts where he goes first. I don't think he will, but he's that good. And Zion, has had all those great workouts with the Senior Bowl and the combine, and I'm sure they have pro day at BC on Friday, so I'm sure he'll wow people again. He'll be probably more of a mid first round pick, but right off the bat, those will be your top 2 guards in the NFL draft, and right off the bat, both of those guys, you'll hear them on those lineup announcements when NFL returns in September.
There we go. And hopefully, have Bill Belichick or one of his scouts out there during Boston College's pro day on Friday, because I'm pretty sure they love to look in their backyard.
Yeah, they were sorry.
Yeah.
So total side note, they were actually at BC, but not for pro day. But Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick, who you've probably seen on TV with the mullet, they were observing practice, and Halfley talked about how this is the first time they've actually had the Patriots at practice because of all the COVID stuff. And that his goal with the team is to get them back on campus more often. So
there we go.
That might be another thing that we, up in Chestnut Hill, that's something good that they can kind of build with that hasn't been there before.
For sure. And I know we've talked about quarterbacks, but the ones that are coming back next season, Devin Leary and Phil Dracovic, who are going to lose an Icky and who are going to lose a Zion Johnson. It'll be very interesting to see how they progress or maybe regress, or how the offensive lines adjust to those guys not being on their squads, because we've talked a big game about the Atlantic, and I know that Boston College and NC State are both due for a really big season.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's for BC. I can speak from experience. Their biggest question heading next year isn't their defense. It's they lost 4 players on their offensive line, and that is a bit worrisome. I mean, Zion is great, and Alec Lindstrom was really good, but I think they return a guy, Christian Mahogany, who's going to be really, really good, and they're going to have some question marks next to him, and I'm not sure how that's going to go, and that could be a big factor in Boston College. And anytime you, like Icky, anytime you lose an elite player like that, it's an adjustment, and it's all going to be on Dave Doran on how he's recruited that position and developed guys to be ready for that spot. And if he's got a guy ready to go, that I'm telling you, NC State, Devin Leary is going to be a name that everyone's going to be talking about next year.
1,000%. Hopefully it'll be more positive than I feel like Kenny Pickett is getting. But that's just me. Again, like I said, I would also love to talk about some of the linemen on the defensive side. Jermaine Johnson has been one that has been through the roof in the conversations. The Florida State players had great talks about his combine visit and just how he's jumped off the page and really made himself some money every time some of the scouts have seen him. And just to me, the defensive line is one of the better position groups of this draft. Like, it's going to be very unique to see how teams evaluate and ultimately end up picking some of these guys. Can you talk a little bit about Johnson and kind of how you feel like he'll fall with so many good stars?
Yeah, you look at the first round and especially the defensive line, and you've got some very good talent. As I said to kick off the show, you got some really talented defensive linemen. Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, Thibodeau from Oregon. But then you look at, like, you have 7 guys from Georgia, it seems like, that are all going to be first or second round picks.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of all that, you have Jermaine Johnson. And I mean, I saw him play, and he, of any AC, obviously he was Defensive Player of the Year, and he deserved it. I mean, what a talent Florida State kind of got out of the transfer portal last year, and he probably would have just blended in at Georgia, but he got to be that guy on campus. I mean, BC and Florida State, when I watched them play, it was a back and forth game, but then Jermaine Johnson just took the game over. And he has that ability that I think NFL teams are going to look at and go, man, we need a good edge rusher. This is the guy to go for. And he, I think there'll probably be 3, the 2 guys, one of the guys from Georgia and the, kid from Oregon and Hutchinson will probably go in front of him, but he's going to be a mid first round pick, and I think he's going to be an exciting player in the NFL.
Giants, if you're listening. No, I'm just kidding. But actually, but I do agree. And I also just think sometimes guys just need a new home to flourish. You are so right in saying when he was at Georgia, he would have been lost in that sauce. Like, yeah, he would have won a national championship, but would he be this much talked about when it came to draft prospects? Like, you got to pick and choose what you want. And honestly, at this point in the stage of the game, we know it's all about that dollar sign. So however high you can go up in this draft, I think is going to be so important. I would say one position group that I feel like I've seen no ACC people at the top of the list would definitely be the wide receivers group. I know I'm jumping here, but want to get your thoughts before I give a wrap up of the show. I was looking at lists and I'm like, wow, like Jacory Roberson, no, like, are we not feeling it? Wide receivers didn't really get that much love here in the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the talk is, the kids from other conferences, right? You got all the guys, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. You have Jamison Williams, from Alabama, George Pickens from Georgia, but no ACC discussion.
Yeah.
And that's where you're gonna get value picks, though. You know what I mean?
That's
like
true.
A guy like Roberson is gonna be a perfect value pick for some team, and maybe a late round flyer or a 3rd or 4th round pick, and you get a guy that can do a lot. And I think that'll, he'll find his spot, but he's good, but he didn't do a lot to like open a ton of eyes yet. I think
Mhm.
that will happen when he gets up to the league.
Absolutely. Guys like him and then, Charleston Rambo out of Miami and maybe Mike Harley out of Miami as well. They definitely did an interview. You guys haven't seen that one, but it's just to me, as much as we talk about, ACC quarterbacks and not like they got to throw to somebody, like I would love to know who people actually have on their list, maybe going into this season. But before I get AJ out of here, I'm going to ask him a couple more questions just about how exciting it is to see some of the top ACC prospects heading into the NFL draft. But as you all know, with the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it is now impossible for your local chain auto parts stores to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Please visit rockauto.com. So we're wrapping up the show here. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask AJ, just for, to all intents and purposes, how excited are you about this NFL draft? Does it feel kind of lackluster? Like, I think in years past, we've been so excited to see where some people land. And this year it's kind of like, maybe because the quarterbacks aren't the top of the conversation, it's kind of like, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, last year it was, all those quarterbacks. It was Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence. You wanted to see where they all Mac Jones. You wanted to see where all the dominoes fell on that, and that was really exciting. This year, I don't know. There's something about defensive ends, especially defensive ends that aren't like, you had Nick Sue a couple years, not a couple, like a decade ago, and when you get like a guy like that near the top,
Yeah.
it's exciting. You want to see Luke Kuechly where they go. But these guys they're good, but they're like not super exciting. And all the quarterbacks are good, but they're not super exciting. So like it kind of just flutters down into your overview of how you're viewing that draft. And so I get excited for any draft. I'm a nerd. I'll sit there and watch it. I'll have my two kids pulling on me and I'm like, hey, I want to see who the Chargers draft in the fourth round, but I think for the average fan, it's probably not going to be the most exciting draft. I think that'll probably be next year.
For sure. And then as a Patriots fan, they're more the lay low type. And have you seen some of the small pieces that they made in free agency? Are you still excited about what they could potentially do going into the season?
Nope. They haven't done anything. Yeah, they've been sitting on their hands for a while, and I was hoping they would do something in terms of like grabbing a wide receiver or no, they just let a lot of their guys leave, and then didn't they let JC Jackson, who's the best cornerback in the AFC, leave, and hadn't done much. So I'm expecting unless Mac Jones takes a huge step forward and they get him a wide receiver, I'm expecting, given the talent the AFC has put together this year, for them to take a step back.
Ooh, that is going to be tough for sure. And before we get out of here, of course, it's March Madness. Do you have a team that you're suddenly not rooting for? We have 3 teams in the ACC, but you could be rooting for somebody completely different.
Rooting. I mean, I have my bracket, so I'm going.
Okay, how's your bracket looking?
When I watched Kentucky and Baylor lose, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. Just happy to be here.
I liked watching UNC play. Well, that game was, I'm sure you talked about it a bit. I was watching that at a restaurant with my family, and I was like, oh, I'm talking to my father-in-law. I'm going, Tar Heels got this. They're up by 24 points. Look at this. And then we're eating, and I'm like, what? And then watching the refs kind of take over and I'm sure you probably got into that too. That was driving me nuts. So that game was really good. I like St. Peter's. I love a good Catholic school that comes out of nowhere. I like a good Cinderella story, though. They're gonna probably get smoked. I don't know. In terms of money, I'm gonna go with Gonzaga.
Okay, I like that. The thing about Carolina is I wasn't invested. You know me, I was so glad that they beat Duke the final home game that I said nothing matters in the tournament. And then you mess around, beat Marquette handily, and then you come around and start handling Baylor. You want to talk about me being invested now? Now I'm like, well, damn, you might as well win the whole thing. If we're gonna be in Sweet 16, you might as well win the whole thing.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know me. Like, if we're gonna be here, let's go ahead and do it. Let's get all the kid and caboodle. But I love the fact that the men and women are still dancing. So just excited to see some good basketball yet again. But like I said, football is near. We got to get ready for the draft. So always a pleasure to have you, AJ, to give us some further insight. Can you please remind these folks of where they can find you, follow your work?
So we jumped off the wide receiver talk before I give you my plugs.
Okay.
This year is a bad year for ACC wide receivers, but look out for next year. You're
Okay.
gonna have Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, A.T. Perry, and I'm sure I'm missing a few others, but like 3 guys right there that could
Yeah.
be probably first couple rounds for the ACC. Zay Flowers could be a first round draft pick, and I'm not sleeping on Jordan Addison either. I think both of those
Yeah.
kids are really good. So this might be a down year in terms of the wide receiver draft pool, but watch for those guys. Anyways, you can find me on AJ Black on bcbulletin.com is where I'm the editor and publisher. I'm also the host of Locked On Boston College, where I talk about Boston College sports 5 days a week. I'm the only guy in the industry that does this, so check it out. I'll be talking all about the draft. I have recruiting talk, all sorts of good stuff. So check that out. I'm on anywhere you find podcasts and on YouTube.
No doubt about it. Guys, make sure you come back tomorrow as we'll talk with Tyler Aki about some really fun games heading into the March Madness Sweet 16. You got Duke, you got Carolina, you've got Miami still dancing. We'll discuss that here for Candace Cooper and AJ Black. Until next time.